Hey guys, welcome back to Bryan's Mysteries and Adventures on Trail. And like I said, since a lot of people don't watch till the end, I just want to say that yes, I have been having a lot of insomnia and I'm up late, so I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little bit different. In any event, this case is taking us to Glacier National Park in July of 2013, and this is just one of those just unbelievable cases now. The Glacier National Park is located in Montana, at least this part, and here's the map of the location of where this incident occurred. And this all took place in 2013 in July. And to understand this case, we need to talk about a couple different people, Cody Johnson and Jordan Graham. Now, these two were very young. Cody was only 22. She was only 25. He was 25. She was 22. And they, Cody was a really nice guy. He loved cars. He was one of those guys that loved to fix up cars or quote unquote soup them up. And eventually he ended up opening up his own shop and alterations for people's cars. And he was doing really well. But, according to his friends and family, something was missing in his life. He wanted to have a woman, and he ended up meeting this woman named Jordan Graham. And Jordan was very, very religious, a Baptist, and she got Cody into being more religious, and he became one with the Lord, and they were doing really well. I mean, they had a sort of a whirlwind romance, and they went to church together. They loved doing outdoor activities together. And according to all of Cody's friends, even his female friends, even the female friends of Jordan, they said that he was just the nicest guy and that he was just absolutely head over heels in love with Jordan. He thought she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. He treated her like a princess, and he just loved her with all of his heart. They were a young couple in love, or at least that's what it seemed. Jordan was someone who prayed a lot. She was working as a nanny, and she also taught Sunday school. And all her friends thought she was sort of an introvert, but they said that she was outgoing when she wanted to be. And all of her friends and family, they all said that not only did she like working with these children and these people at the church, but she ultimately wanted to have children of her own. And this relationship with Cody, it just kept expanding, and eventually they got engaged. And ultimately, in 2013, they got married, and everyone thought it was wonderful. Everyone was so happy for them. They thought this was a wonderful thing. They were two people that seemed to click really well together, and based on their religious beliefs, they had decided that they were going to wait until after they were married to have sex. And this is where a lot of the problems started. At least when you hear the rest of the story, you'll understand, because honestly, it's just unbelievable. And one of the things I want you to keep in mind is all of her friends and all of her family said that Jordan would always talk about how she just wanted to be a wife and a mother and take care of kids. And going into this, she was very excited. The couple had rented their own place. They were getting their own place for the first time. And according to her friends, she was excited to be able to go and decorate it. And things were going well. Then all of a sudden, 8 days after they got married, Cody disappears, just vanishes. And the odd thing was that Cody's best friend was the one that went in and reported him missing to the police department, not his wife, Jordan. And the officer immediately found that suspicious. He was like, well, why isn't his wife concerned, or why didn't she come in? So, of course, the police brought her in for questioning, and Jordan told the police that the day that Cody disappeared, they went to church, and then they went to Dairy Queen that evening for dinner, and then afterwards they went home, and apparently he got a phone call that went on for like 35 minutes, and he was very upset during this phone call. And according to what Jordan told the police, he was just sitting there brooding after the conversation, and she had forgotten her cell phone charger at work, so she left to go get that charger. And when she came back, she'd gotten a message from Cody saying that he had left to go out with some of his buddies, and all she saw was a dark-colored sedan leaving at a high speed. She further told the police that Cody did this often. He would go out with his buddies and they would try and race around. They were in this car club and they would try and go as fast as they could around these dangerous roads and drive in these curvy roads and see who could outpace one another. And of course, the officer asked her why she hadn't contacted the authorities, and she said that, well, she was afraid to because if he actually then came back, he would be mad at her for reporting him missing, which, of course, to the authorities made no sense. Now, thankfully, at this time, the next day, Cody's mom came into the station with his phone records, and it showed the record of the phone call that Jordan had alleged that he was on the night that he had disappeared. And they contacted this guy named Jose, and they spoke with him, and they asked him what the conversation was about. And it was just about some missing tools that he had. I believe it was a torque wrench. And Jose said that he was going to bring it back to him. And it really just didn't match up to the story that Jordan had said, that it was this really upsetting conversation. It was just a conversation about getting a tool back. And they, spoke with Jose. They ended up clearing him, and obviously their suspicions started to grow even more. So at this point, there was an all-out, search for Cody. I mean, there was people out, his friends, his family, the police. People were looking for him because they knew something was wrong. At first, the police thought maybe it was drug-related because of the way Jordan told the story, but after speaking to the guy named Jose, they were out looking for him for numerous days. And then Jordan arbitrarily just comes into the police station with this email. So she brings this email in and she reads it to them. And it was from this man supposedly named Carman Tony, and said, "Don't bother going looking for Cody anymore. He went for a drive with some of his friends. Then they went out and they got out and went for a hike, and Cody ended up falling over a cliff. So just tell the police to stop looking for him because he's not coming back." So, of course, the authorities have to investigate this, and now they're trying to figure out who this Carman Tony is. And they asked Jordan if Cody had worked with anybody named that, and they did find out that he had. So they brought this guy in, and it turned out he was, a co-worker, but this guy was very forthcoming. He gave them all the information. He didn't have an email with that address, and they were able to clear him as a suspect. And it was, just so bizarre anyway. But it did give the detectives another clue, because they subpoenaed the records for the IP address from where this email originated from, because they wanted to figure out who sent it. And they did that through Google, and apparently it can be a lengthy process, but they did that. They subpoenaed the phone records as well. And while this was all going on, they obviously were still out searching for him, because the police and everybody assumed that because of this email, they assumed that it was true. So they went up to Glacier National Park and they started searching on the Sun Road, which is apparently this 30-mile long road, which is narrow. It's very dangerous. And apparently Jordan was with them. They got up to the top of the road. They parked their car and they were looking around, and she looked down and she said, "Oh, that's the Loop Trail. That's a trail that we've hiked before together. That's one of our favorite spots." So she walked over, and apparently she literally leaned over the edge and threw a rock and said, "Oh my gosh, I think I see something down there." And then Cody's brother came by and he saw, they noticed what looked like a body. And of course they all started crying and they alerted the authorities. But apparently this Loop Trail area is so treacherous, there wasn't anything they could do at the time. They had to wait. They went back, they contacted the rangers. They told them the location, but they had to wait till the next day in order to get the proper equipment and the manpower in order to get down into this area. where the remains were, was down off this cliff in this pool of water. And the investigators, once they saw that they could see a blue shoe, and they confirmed that he was wearing blue shoes. And it still took them hours, because apparently this area is so treacherous. I mean, according to the report, if you made like one false step, you'd fall like over 300 feet. So they began the arduous task of getting down there, and they were able to, and obviously they found the remains in the pool of water at the bottom. And of course they had a coroner on site, and of course then they had to let the family know of this terrible tragedy. And then all the questions started to arise. But first they were able to get the remains out, and they started to do their investigation. And most of his friends were saying there's no way that Cody would go up on this particular trail, because he was scared of heights. So why would he be up there in the first place? And throughout this investigation, they got even more evidence. Jordan's maid of honor actually came in and told authorities that Jordan was terrified of having sex, and she thought she had made a mistake, and she was going to confront Cody. And everyone who knew Cody knew him to be a man that would be very gentle and say, okay, this is fine. And she kept telling people different stories, and the investigators were obviously figuring this out. But she basically she had told her best friend that she was just terrified of making love, which doesn't make sense because she wanted kids. So the investigators were starting to put the pieces together, but the real break came when they heard back from Google, and they got the IP address, which was linked to Jordan's father's house. And of course, they had to do their due diligence, and they interviewed everybody in the family. They interviewed the father, the mother, all the siblings, and there was nothing to suggest that they had anything to do with it. So in their minds, it was becoming more and more clear that this was something that Jordan had done. And the evidence against her just kept mounting. They got the cell phone records back, and they showed that both her and Cody's cell phone were together, and they were in Glacier National Park. Not only that, apparently in the entrance, the main entrance where you go through into Glacier National Park, there is surveillance footage which showed Cody, and it showed Jordan in the passenger side. So they knew that they were both in the park that night together, which just totally discredited everything that she had said. I mean, she had made up all these lies, and now they were all just falling apart. She eventually ended up confessing in a sort of way. She said that she changed her story that said that after they went to Dairy Queen, they went to Glacier National Park, and they got into an argument, and she just got so stressed out that she pushed him over the edge because he was lunging at her. But all of this made no sense. Everybody that knew Cody knew that he would never do any of these things. And what's even sadder is that it's speculated that she probably brought him up there under the guise of some kind of, romantic gesture, and blindfolded him and then pushed him over, which is just absolutely awful. I mean, this woman is just a psychopath. I mean, even her friends, her people that, knew her whole life could not believe that she had done this. And the fact is that, okay, yes, if you're having hesitations about, intimacy, that's fine. Just discuss it with your partner. And there was no evidence between any of the records that she ever did this. She just decided that she wasn't going to go through with this, and she just took a good man from this world. And reading about this guy, Cody, he just seems like such a nice guy. I mean, I just wish I could have known him. He just seems like such an amazing guy and such a friendly guy. And I know that if she had talked to him about this, he probably would have just said something like, okay, let's just, work through it. But instead, it was 8 days after they had gotten married, and she throws her husband off of a cliff in Glacier National Park. I mean, who does that? It doesn't matter like how nervous you are about something, you talk to somebody about it. And the authorities obviously they kept working this case because they had to prove that it was premeditated. And obviously, through all of her lies and all of the things that she had said, and then, the phone records, and then having the video surveillance footage of them coming into the park together, it was obvious that she had brought him up there to do this, which is it's just awful. I mean, it's just a terrible, terrible tragedy. And according to friends and family, both her friends and his friends, they both said that, Cody would have done anything for her. What's worse is, as the trial wore on, it became clear that she had probably, like I said, lured him up there under the guise of some kind of romantic thing and blindfolded him before she did this, which is just unbelievable. Such a cowardly thing to do. She received 30 years in prison. U.S. District Judge Donald Monley sentenced her to this second-degree murder charge. Of course, her defense argued this and that, and they tried to get them to drop other things. She was facing a max of 50 years in prison, but she got 30 years and is in prison to this day. And honestly, I think she should have gotten more time. I don't think it's fair that, she will get out one day and Cody doesn't get a chance to live his life. And he didn't do anything wrong. All of his friends, even her girlfriends, they all say that he was just such a loving guy and a caring guy, and he would have done anything for her. He would have waited. He would have done whatever she wanted. And instead, she just decided to take her husband out to a beautiful place and blindfold him and throw him over a cliff because she was worried about making love. And honestly, that makes no sense because all she wanted was children, and if she didn't want to get married, she didn't have to. No one was forcing her to. It's just a tragedy every way you look at it. And my thoughts and prayers go out to Cody, his friends, and his family. And I just hope that you can find closure. And I'm so sorry that you all had to go through this. I want to thank everybody for watching, as always, and please be respectful in the comments if you choose to leave them. Special thank you to co.ag for providing the background music, and I will see everyone in the next one. Take care. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me till the end, and I think this case is just a perfect example of how we just need to communicate with one another. We need to sit down and talk, and if we have an issue with one another, just talk it out. And there's no need for these kind of terrible tragedies, and this is something that could have totally been avoided. And it's so upsetting because reading about it and learning about what a nice guy Cody was, it just please everybody, if you have a problem with one another, just talk it out. Thank you, as always, for sticking with me and watching my videos, and I appreciate all your support. And I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little different. I've been having insomnia issues, and I appreciate everybody sticking with me and watching my videos. And if you have any comments or questions, I'm always all ears, and thank you so much for all your support. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.